That's it. We're on to our final panel for my very first virtual Comic-Con with raising monies for the half cut. I'm exhausted. This has been my 7th hour. I'm working behind the scenes, so it's after 5:30, and we've coming up to $800 mark just for the Kapow Day. But the half cut itself has raised an enormous. Let's have a quick refresh. $262,000. That's 100,000 square meters of Daintree rainforest. That's amazing. But today's panel is crowdfunding during a crisis. We've got 3 comic creators who have all had success crowdfunding their books during this COVID-19 pandemic. People can't go out anywhere, but it looks like we can still make comics through crowdfunding. So here we go. We've got Shuan Keenan.
Hey guys.
Darren Close.
Hello.
And Sorab Del Rio.
Hey,
Thanks for coming, guys.
Hey,
glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
No problem. As much as I've loved doing this, I'm looking forward to the end. So we'll start out with you, Shuan. Can you tell us about your work and what you've been up to?
Yeah, definitely. So my name's Shuan Keenan. I am the owner of Comics to Movies, which is a graphic novel publisher here in Australia. We publish the Extreme Champion Tournament, which is our #1 series. We also do Terra Olympus, which is a sci-fi series. And we are about to release our 3rd series called Talos of Sparta. So we've been crowdfunding our books during COVID, and super excited to launch another one in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
And Darren, what about you?
I make Killaroo comic books probably for the last 2 decades. I just recently launched a Kickstarter, and it was my first campaign. So it's been an interesting journey, particularly during the pandemic. I'm not sure that it's actually been a bad thing. I think there's probably been more people at home sort of looking for stuff to entertain them. So I think it's actually probably reached more eyes than it normally would during ideal circumstances, I suppose.
And last but not least, Sorab Del Rio, how are you?
Hey, good, thanks, Matt. Hey, guys. Well, my name's Sorab Del Rio. I've got a venture called Silver Fox Comics. It's I'm the Chief Fox. That's my official title. The Chief Fox of Silver Fox Comics. It's a collaboration with a good friend of mine called Don Ticchio, and we've been doing indie comics for about 10 years now. We're probably best known for a couple of graphic novel series that we've done, including the Zombie Cities graphic novel series, and another one which is a very Australian comic called Bazza the Bogan Barbarian, and most recently Bazza the Bat and the Drop Bears.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Shuan, you've probably got the most experience crowdfunding. How many crowdfunding campaigns have you done?
So I've done 10 under Comics to Movies, and then I've been a part of another 3 on top of that. So 13 all up. Never gets easier, but it's been a great source of income. So if anyone does indie publishing, as anyone creates their own comics, it's quite expensive, especially if you're going to do color, and the printing costs are always the things that kind of is the hardest thing to raise money for. So crowdfunding was a great entry into the market of being able to publish a larger amount of books, so you can get that cost per book down. So I was one of the first Australian comics to successfully fund on Kickstarter. So that was in October of 2013, and I've been running between 1 to 2 Kickstarters ever since then. So this year will be my most in regards to having ran 2 Kickstarters and 2 Indiegogos already, with another one launching on the 18th of March, and then also another one before the end of the year. So been a crazy busy year, but it's been good.
How have you found the difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter?
It's a completely different audience. That's the thing that really surprised me. So, Indiegogo, there's a lot of Twitter users, and a lot of the funding comes from YouTube, where I found Kickstarter is predominantly comes from Facebook. So I've usually used Facebook the most in regards to building up comics to movies as a brand. So my Kickstarters have always been fairly consistent and quite good, but Indigo was a real big learning curve. They didn't do as well as the Kickstarters, but just it's about slowly building up another audience type of thing. So it's always great to have a successful campaign. So to follow that up with another Indiegogo campaign with the same products that you're selling, it's great to have that one reach its target as well.
Yeah, Sean, I've heard Indiegogo have a thing called In Demand. Is that a new product they're rolling out, where basically rather than trying to compete with Kickstarter, they're kind of supplementing it? So it's sort of, I think the business model idea is run your Kickstarter, and then as soon as it's done, you switch straight over to the Indiegogo campaign. Have you done that yet?
No, so I found that out after the fact. I did these two Kickstarters. So you're 100% spot on. So what Indiegogo has done now is they have a in-demand platform. So you can, if you've been successfully crowdfunded, not just on Kickstarter but any other crowdsourcing sites, you can go straight to Indiegogo, provide them with those details, which includes the amount of backers, so on and so forth, and go straight into in demand. What in demand means is that you can set up certain perks or just the individual item by itself, and people can continue to pledge or support or purchase your items straight from Indiegogo. So it's a great way to almost have like another store at no extra cost. But they do take a percentage of how much each sale you make, but there's no setup costs or anything like that in regards to doing it in demand. So that's really good if you've got leftover stock, or you've printed too much, or you want to chuck up something that a new item that you've created based on your IP. So like say an enamel pin or something like that, you can always add that into these in demand. So I'm just setting up my Kickstarter for the 18th of September, and I have found that now Kickstarter has add-ons like Indiegogo has. So it's interesting. They're both taking bits and pieces from each other's platforms.
Nice.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Indiegogo's platform is that with the perks, Kickstarter do share the perks in order of the value. So the perk that's $10 is the one that you see first. Indiegogo gives you a chance to select which perk that you want to showcase a bit more. And I think with that one, it probably helped us a little bit with our order value. So, we showcased the one which had the new comic book, the PDFs and some prints. I can't remember what else. There was another little bonus there, but I'm pretty sure that it helped in contributions. People selected that one more. So, so there's certainly advantages and disadvantages of both, but the best idea, like you said, is really to use all platforms, and it's common across all marketing, whether it's advertising. You've got to do Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and and even on crowdfunding platforms, you've got to do all as well.
Darren, you're a bit of a veteran. You would have spent thousands of dollars making comics in the past. Do you wish something like crowdfunding was around 20 years ago?
Yeah, it would have been helpful. But the thing is, it was around 10 years ago, and I've only just started using it now. So I've kind of avoided. Originally, I thought it was just for big ticket items. So, like if I was doing like a hardcover or a trade paperback or something that's going to have a lot of upfront costs in printing. But yeah, I thought it was time to take the plunge with a smaller book. It's still a reasonable print cost because it's perfect bound books. It's quite significantly more expensive than just doing a saddle stitched normal size comic book. So we sort of went with this one and set our goal just basically to print the book. And we also didn't want to launch until the book was ready to print. I mean, there's been a few crowdfunding campaigns that they sort of run the campaign, generate the money, and then they go, okay, now let's start making the book. And it might be a year or a year and a half, or it may never actually eventuate. So I felt it was important to establish very quickly that this book is ready to print. And as soon as we get funded, it's off to the printers, sort of thing.
Shuan, you've made a considerable amount of Kickstarters now. What are the things you've been learning over the years?
Oh wow, there's so many. The biggest thing and what Darren touched on was, like, people not using the platform. It can be used for anything, and I think that's what people are just realizing now, is that it can be, generating at $500 to do a reprint of a book that they've had years out for years, or it could be something that's really snazzy, is brand new, is hardcover, is super expensive. There is no kind of limit to Kickstarter. I think the longer I've been on the platform and the more I've used it, the more of an audience you build. So continually having one year on year, I've slowly seen a increase on what I'm able to fund through that platform. I'm fairly new to the comic scene and the comic industry. I've been a fan and not a creator, so for me, it's taken me some time to build up an audience, and I haven't been able to jump out the gate like Darren has, but he has built up quite a strong base and quite a strong following over 20 years within the industry. So I would recommend anyone, give it a go. You're always going to learn something. One thing I do tell people is that if it doesn't fund, that's not a failure. It's actually just something that you can learn from. I do have seen a few people cancel projects prior to the funding finishing, and I think that kind of makes it look worse, because you're kind of giving up rather than going, okay, I didn't make it. What did I learn from it? What can I do different? And then relaunching. And I have seen quite a few relaunches. There's one that comes to mind, Conceptual Heist. They had a moderate goal but didn't meet that goal, and then the creator came back and relaunched it, and he went through that whole campaign and let it go, and it didn't make funding, but was able to then keep all of those contacts, was able to message all those people, and say, look, we are relaunching, all that type of stuff. So there's so much within the crowdfunding framework, so much to know about crowdfunding. There's an hour wouldn't be enough to kind of talk about that, but I guess the main things I say is launch and launch often. Be comfortable of being uncomfortable, because it's quite a hard slog, and just do it. Just get out there and launch your first project. So yeah.
Sorab, you had your recent Bazza comic. How quickly are you starting on the next one?
Oh wow. There probably won't be another Bazza comic for another 2 years. We're working on a new project called Leroy Johnson, the zombie basketballer. So that's our new one for 2020. What year is it now? 2021. This year's a write-off, so it'll be some time. But I think going on what Shuan said about just being consistent. Sometimes I think that the battle is won before you get to Kickstarter. It's all about doing all that groundwork, and I'm kind of keen to hear everyone's thoughts on it. But certainly for all of us, I think Darren and myself, we've spent a lot of time in the conventions, going out there in Artist Alley consecutively, and Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne and so forth, doing all the conventions, meeting people, doing big events, doing small events, doing library events, doing signings where maybe nobody turns up. But I think the most important thing is really, being consistent, just getting out there before you launch, I feel, is getting the word out as to who you are, getting a chance to showcase the work that you do. And sometimes the small events, you don't think they're going to lead to anything. Like we did some signing sessions many years ago where probably literally 5 people turned up. But one of the people that bought a comic from me, he donated 500 in a Kickstarter for us. So you wouldn't think these small things work out, but every chance that you can get to connect with people, big or small, from the big conventions like Supernova and Oz Comic Con to a signing session on your own, or library event, or any sort of event, it's just you've just got to go ahead and do it. Yeah, try to build that following and just get the word out.
What do you think is the next step if we don't have conventions for another year or so? Putting it out there.
Yeah. Well,
there's a possibility.
I think we're going to have to do what you've just done here, this amazing initiative, and all the virtual cons that we're seeing around the world. And I think it's probably going to bring us all together. I think there is an Australian comics community, but I feel that we don't really connect all that much. We're probably too busy working on our own comic books, but maybe we've all got to come together and put on a virtual con that goes on for the whole day, that we all get a chance to showcase. I don't know if just one of us on our own it's gonna do it, because it's just gonna be my audience. But of course, we want to expose our works to as many people as possible. So maybe it's all of us coming together and putting something independent on ourselves.
Same question for everyone, Darren. What do you think could be a workaround?
Yeah, I think Kickstarter and crowdfunding is probably one of the things that can do that, and particularly with the campaign that I've just been running. I've reached out to other people who have been running Kickstarters, several local publishers as well, and cross-promoting them. So basically, they're posting a link about my Kickstarter and what it's about on their campaign as like an update, and I do the same. So we're basically, his audience will come and have a look at my campaign, and my audience will go and have a look at theirs, sort of thing. So, and I think that's towards what Sorab was saying in regards to building a community and sort of working together. I was probably a bit unprepared for just how supportive a lot of people like Shuan and Stephen Koch and a few others that have been in helping me do my campaign, because I was just a flat out newbie at this stuff. That, and also there's a great podcast series called Comics Launch with Tyler Vogel. He does he's been doing it Kickstarters for years with other publishers, other local creators like Ryan Lindsay and a few others, and had some great success with it. So I think I think in the short term, because I don't think we're going to be looking at any conventions happening anytime soon, basically because we can't get guests to come out from the States or wherever when there's no flights. So and you can't gather in large crowds, so we're probably going to have to get used to it, I'd say. I don't know. I think it's at least 6 months away before we're probably looking at another event. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I attend all the Supernovas and Oz Comic Con. So Supernova said that they're still holding their shows in November. So I, I'm from Melbourne, and I know you are too, Daz. So it makes it difficult for us because pretty much a lot of the borders have said that they are not really going to open up until probably the 1st of December. So unless we are actually able to kind of travel and do these conventions, that doesn't really help us here in Victoria. So for us, I'm guessing it will be at least 6 months before we could probably attend anything like that. It's been quite interesting because I said very early on during COVID that 75% of comics to movies and what income we generate comes out of conventions. So it really made me, from a business point of view, sit down and work out, well, how can I make money in regards to during this time and still create. So crowdfunding was one answer to that, but it's also about setting up some other distribution channels and what that looks like. So we've got our books available through the book depository, Amazon.com.au, and several other large book distributors. So we've had to think outside the normal comic book box and go, okay, what else can we do? So crowdfunding's a great way to kind of tie everything together, because you're able to build a bigger audience because it's international. You're able to generate income. You know exactly how much you're going to get. And you can do really as many as you want. So you could run one after another for the every single month if you wanted to do that. So we've sat down and thought out the process of what we're going to do. But I've done a couple of the virtual cons, as Sorab spoke about. I think they've been quite good. There was a small one called the Canberra Geek Markets, and that was just 15 minutes, me being able to spruik my wares and, was able to generate a couple of sales through that. So it's just about seeing what other opportunities are out there. And then, as I said before, about being comfortable or being uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like being in front of a camera, but, these are certain things that we need to do to be able to keep creating and keep generating an income, being an indie creator. So
what do you all look for? Because we're all consumers as well as creatives. What do you look for in your when you go to purchase something, whether it be crowdfunding or other stuff?
Well, I think that the three things I look for is quality. So when I'm looking at the interior pages and everything like that, when we're doing crowdfunding, and if I'm going to support a crowdfunder or a Kickstarter campaign, sorry, I really want to have a look at the interior pages and see what the quality of the book looks like. I always look at the dates that they say that they're going to deliver by, because I have been bitten a couple of times by backing Kickstarters that blows out to a year, 2 years, or I've never actually even received the rewards on some. So that's another thing that I really look out for on a Kickstarter, and also kind of like what their target is. So do I think what they're asking for is really what it would cost to create that product. So when I look at those three things, and that will be my decision on whether I back it or not. And then on top of that is it just needs to interest me. It needs to be something that I'm interested in. So I've backed a lot of historical or mythology Kickstarters, because that's just something that I'm genuinely interested in. Sometimes it'll be friends, cross promotion. So Yeah, but it still has to be something that actually interests me. So,
Sorab, what about you?
What do I look for in a Kickstarter, or just generally?
Yeah, or what do you want to read when you're not creating stuff?
When I'm not creating stuff, I try to find stories that aren't necessarily. It's pretty difficult, but formula driven. You often see the same story being repeated over and over again. So that's pretty hard to find. Like some works that have just stuck out to me is the Image comic Sex Criminals. Um, that's just outlandish. But let's see, what else have I been reading? Different sorts of characters. Like there was a comic on Comixology Originals called Youth, which was about two gay teenagers on the run with supernatural powers. That's now been picked up by Amazon Prime, I think, and they're going to make it into a TV series. And Comixology Original was interesting because it's a platform where the comic is only available digital. It's not available in print unless you print through the Amazon platform. So only available in print, and it went straight through to get a TV series. So different sorts of characters. Let's see. One of my favorite movies is The Shape of Water, and again, the main character is a woman who is mute. She can't speak. Yeah, just a very weak, frail character, very insecure, can't speak, yeah, an amazing film. So different sorts of characters and different ones that are a little bit outside the formula.
Well, for me, it's got to be all about the artwork. When I go to a comic shop, or I'm looking at Kickstarters for stuff to buy, if the art doesn't wow me, then it's not going to get a look in, I'm afraid. I'm just a very visual kind of person, and I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And yeah, flashy art, even if it's poorly written, is probably going to get my dollar before a well-written, average-looking story. So for me, it's got to really grab me with the artwork. As far as the comics that I regularly buy, I've been buying Savage Dragon from Image Comics for about 30 years now. He just reached issue 250, and I've got every issue. And it's the one book, as I said, a lot of the art, a lot of comics I buy, I don't even read them per se. I'm just sort of looking at the art and how they've approached different storytelling angles and so forth. But Savage Dragon, I can't wait to read it. That's my one staple, I suppose.
You've gone, but we talked about Kickstarter before. But what stuff do you like to read and watch?
Well, I gotta admit, most of the stuff that I read lately is all indie stuff. So the last two books I've read was She by Ryan K. Lindsay, which was quite an interesting sci-fi story. I was a big Walking Dead fan, so I'd collected all those up until the end at 193. I am a big Star Wars fan as well, so after saying that I was not going to collect any of the new comics after they disbanded all of the old expanded universe, I've started collecting the graphic novels of the new Marvel Star Wars run. So that's the probably last commercial type purchase that I've had. But it's been difficult. I live in regional Victoria. We don't have a local comic book store here, so I've jumped on All Star Comics' mail out list. So they'll mail my comics out once a month, which is kind of cool. A different option during this period in regards to being able to support other businesses as well. So, hey Stephen, how you going? So. Yeah, and then the other local one that I've read was actually Stephen's Wordsmith. So they're the last few books that I've read.
How important do you think it is that people should purchase other people's Kickstarters prior to starting their own?
I actually think it's pretty important because when you're looking or asking people to support or share your Kickstarter or retweet or that, you'll have your core audience that will always back you. You'll have your super backers, or super fans that will pledge most. But when you're trying to expand that audience further, and that Comics Launch podcast that Darren touched on before, they always say, it's a great idea to back or share without asking for anything in return. And that's something that I've kind of really started to live by, and that. So I think I've backed about 175 different things on Kickstarter, and it's not just about asking for them to back me or share my projects, but it's because I like their projects, that it is a community, and that it's a good chance to network with other creators. And Sorab touched on before that sometimes you can do something like this, and at the time there's no financial gain, but 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the track, that person is speaking to another person that then hears about your Kickstarter, or knew about your Kickstarter but hadn't backed it last time, and now backs it this time, and you get a $500 a backer, and it's like, well, that 2 minutes of my time or 20 minutes of my time to actually connect with someone, rather than just, hey, I've got this Kickstarter going on, can you just share my Kickstarter and I'll share yours, is much more powerful and much more long term. So yeah.
Yeah, I find the same thing, Shuan. One of the things that if I'm going to back a Kickstarter, I'll look at who it is that's running the campaign, and if they've got something like because it has under each name, there's sort of like number of projects that this person has run and how many of other people's that they've backed. If I see like a 0 in backed other projects, that's kind of a red flag to me, because it's sort of, there is a community sense to crowdfunding, and it should really be seen as, we're all sharing the same customers and the same projects and the same interested parties. So if I see someone, and it might look like a really impressive project, but if I see that they're not sort of, I guess what's the phrase, pushing it forward, or paying it forward rather, I think that's probably important for me. And I think when people look at my campaigns, given that this is my first, I think there is a little bit of credibility there when they say, okay, it's backed 10, 20, 30 other projects already, and now I'm launching my first. It's sort of like, I'm not just here for the money, I'm here for the community side of things.
100%. I think that's the biggest hurdle sometimes, is that you can be perceived to be just there for the money. So if you've created 2 or 3 projects and you've backed 0, it's like, well, hang on a sec, you're on this platform saying, support me, but where is that support for other creators? But that's not to say that people don't support in other ways. It's just one of the many things to do with crowdfunding that people look at, and helps them determine whether they're going to back a project or not. For me, I've noticed lately that if a story has or the person that's creating the story has a real connection to it, that seems to be moves me a lot more to back it as well now. So, and that's because I've created that connection with that creator. Like I know them, I have some sort of care about them, or something like that. So it moves me to go, okay, well, I can spare $1 for this, or I can spare $10 for this, or I absolutely love it, here's $100, because not only do I like your project, but I actually want everything that you're offering, type of thing.
What's 3 tips you can each give about three tips for your Kickstarter? I'll start with you, Sorab.
Well, I was just going to chime in at the end of that topic. I don't think it's that important to have backed other people's Kickstarters. The thing I look for is to make sure that the book is finished, that they've really committed 100% to it, and that at least had time in the comics community, whether it's through the convention scene or art scene or what have you. So I don't think it's that important. Actually, and one of the things for me, which was kind of a New Year's resolution for me, was that I need to stop being a fan as much and start being more of a creator, because I think I spend often too much of my time reading other people's works or watching, great TV shows and stuff, and maybe I should be dedicating that time to my own work. So, one of the stuff with Silver Fox is that, we're not the artists, Don and I see each other as the writer, producer, director. We have to commission the artwork. It costs a lot of money. So, one of the things we want to keep going. We don't always make the money back. So maybe I've got to stop buying comics, and I've been selling a lot of the comics off really to raise money for new comics, because that's part of my thing. I think I've got to stop being a creator, stop being a fan as much, and put the time into my own works. So, I guess I'm a little bit different on that side, but this year with COVID, I was made redundant. Got a new job, fortunately, but it's still pretty risky. And I was like, well, I still want to make comics, and we haven't got the conventions in. I was like, well, I think I'm going to have to sell my comic book collection, or I'm going to have to trade. There's a graphic designer I want to work with. We're going to trade some comics and some collectibles for some art, for some design work. It's different ways to approach it, I guess. But I do support the few works that I've come across. But usually, I like to support people also at the conventions. I like meeting the creators in person and getting to know them there. Forgot what the question was, but anyway. So what was the question? Original question?
Top tips for crowdfunding.
Top tips for crowdfunding. Get out there first, try to showcase your work, get out to as many conventions. Don't be afraid. I've met a lot of creators who are often afraid to go to a convention. That they've come to me in Artist Alley and say, hey, I've made a comic. What do you think? Do you think it's any good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm usually like, wow, I think that's great. But what do you think? Don't you think it's good yourself? You should get it out there, go to a convention. Don't be scared to put it out there. What's the worst that can happen? But I did find a lot of creators are actually just scared to go out there and spend a whole weekend at a table saying, this is what I did. Come have a look at it. There's a big fear just in making that very first step. So don't be afraid to just get out there. Take a small convention. Maybe it's a regional convention that's half a day as opposed to a full-blown weekend. But get out there. Second tip, I think make sure that the work is complete. I think that adds the biggest credibility to you. I think I stopped backing Kickstarters because 50% of the comics that I backed didn't turn up. So now, unless it's done in full, I won't back it. And thirdly, make sure you have a lot of content, because you've got 30 days or 60 days, and you've got to make a lot of content, whether it's different images, videos, different covers, artwork, maybe interviews. I think that's something I'm a little bit guilty of. I don't like getting out there, being in front of cameras. I'm fine at the convention, but getting on film and stuff, not so much. But I think you really got to put yourself out there and plan that you've got 60 days and you need a lot of content to cover that 60 days to keep it different. You can't keep posting the same cover image for, 2 months straight. Hope that helps. Yeah.
All right, Darren, on to you.
I think the key part of a great Kickstarter is hey, Stephen. It's the story page, which is where, if you have a graphic design background like myself, it's handy because I can create little custom graphics for each reward tier. plenty of graphics, plenty of preview pages, and if you've got reward tiers for different people, sort of really explaining what it is they get for when they up their pledge another $50, another $20, value add. I found stretch goals are particularly useful with trying to keep the amount ticking over. You sort of giving people something to strive for. So if it reaches another $1,000, you'll get a postcard as well. Everyone who buys a physical book gets a bonus. For the campaign I've just run, I've kind of overdone it insofar as there's so many stretch goals that cost quite a bit of money to actually produce, that it's sort of really cutting into any kind of profit margin that we had in mind. So probably don't go too hard too early with stretch goals, but I do think they're important to keep the campaign ticking over. And I guess the third thing would be just planning. I didn't launch this campaign within a week. I'd actually been Kickstarter basically allows you to start setting up your campaign, setting up your reward tiers, setting up your story, and all the graphics. You can be doing that for months before you actually launch. And that's, I think, one of the key things that's helped me with my campaign is I spent weeks creating custom graphics and reward tiers and explaining how they all work and really trying to give them they should be scrolling that story page for quite a fair bit to really see everything that you're offering, and really explaining, okay, this book is ready to print. So give a timeline of when the campaign ends, how long will it be before I can expect the book to arrive, sort of list your credentials of how long you've been doing things, just basically build up a rapport with the customer and basically outline, where you're at now and what you've done in the past to get to that point, and just sort of establish a bit of credibility in that sense and a level of trust that, okay, well, this guy's done 15 books. He knows how to make books. That makes me feel a bit more confident that he's going to be able to make this 16th one. And I guess with this one, because it's my first campaign, I've kind of overdone it with all the constant promotion, which I think a few of my friends have basically said, well, you shut up enough about this bloody Kickstarter. But you can't really be, I think part of running a successful Kickstarter is you've really got to be prepared to put yourself out there, and you're basically saying, look, the product that I've made here, I'm really quite proud of it. And, I'm very proud of the work that my collaborator, Stuart Black, has done on it. And I feel confident in selling it. I feel when I say to someone, if you back this Kickstarter that I've got, you should see all the goodies that you'll get. Like, the book's great. The little ancillary merchandise is great. Just having confidence in yourself and your product. And I think that comes across. And it's probably more than 3 tips, but I got one more, which is I never send out blank links to people saying back my Kickstarter. It's just, I don't think many people respond well to it. So I try and put into a bit of a spiel, or sort of how you're going, how are you dealing with this pandemic, that sort of thing. So you're establishing a rapport, you're catching up with a friend, what they're doing. And chances are they've already seen the campaign that I'm running, and I make a bit of a gag about it. And I'll put a little animated GIF of a pimp walking up. So I'm sort of in pimp mode now. And I think it's sort of, people will then decide, okay, whether do I want to back this or do I not? And, a few people have been, yeah, not really, but, it's far more personal than just going, I made a Kickstarter, go send me money. Like, it's just, I never respond well to those, and I don't expect my customers to react well to that kind of approach either. So, Shuan, over to you.
Okay, for me, it's know your costs. So if you know how much you are paying for letters, for art, for promotion, for advertising and everything, you can understand what your target is. I've spoken to a lot of creators, and the issues that they face is that they'll put a $2,500 goal, but really they need $3,000 or $4,000 to do all the printing and everything like that. So really understand your costs and be open and honest with where the breakdown of those costs are, so that you can let your audience know this is what we're raising the money for. So for example, I've always gone to Kickstarter with a completed project, so I always ask for just the printing costs. I'll let them know how much I'm printing, so that they understand that that's exactly where the money is going to. My second tip is know your audience. I think this is a trap that a lot of creators get into. They say, oh, I've launched my Kickstarter, but the only people that have backed it are family and friends. Where's my audience? Well, you need to have an understanding of where your audience is, what your audience looks like, and where they hang out. And then you, once you know that information, then that's where you can target your crowdfunding. That's where you can target your marketing. That's where you can connect with other people that are within that audience. And my last one is really simple. Just don't be a dick. I see a lot of creators out there that are just not great people, and they're just dicks. Just don't be a dick. You be passionate about your project, talk passionately about your project, promote your project, but just do it in a way where you are mindful of people, that you come from a good place, and that you are kind to all. I think that will get you the best and biggest response that you can imagine. So they're my 3 tips.
Alrighty, I think that's about a wrap, guys. Where can people find you to get more of your work?
Well, for me, I'm comics to movies on everything. So Facebook, it's comics 2 movies on Facebook. We've got our own website, www.comicstomovies.com.au. And then on Twitter, it is comics_2_movies, and Instagram, comics to movies as well. So pretty easy on all those platforms.
Yeah, for me, it's mainly just a case of being able to spell Killaroo the right way. It's KILLEROO. If you type that into pretty much any social media like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you'll find me that way. Killaroo.com is normally where you would find it as well, but I need to finish building the next version of that website. So, just probably Facebook is your best bet. Just type in Killaroo and you'll find me pretty easily.
For me, it's silverfoxcomics.com.au. Silverfox Comics on Facebook as well, and Instagram. And I just want to leave you with a few words that probably Baz of the Bogan Barbarian and Killaroo are the greatest Australian movies that haven't been made. So if any filmmakers are out there, yep, you've got a great property here, some great IPs, and they should be movies without question. Baz of the Bogan Barbarian would smash. All we've really got is Mad Max, Croc Dundee. We need Baz of the Bogan Barbarian, Shazza, the Drop Bears, and Killaroo.
No, I think Australia needs another iconic character like Crocodile Dundee that everyone likes. It's due to come again. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming today.
No worries.
It's been great. I hope everybody learned something. And this was our very first virtual Comic Con. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Thanks, guys. And pledge and support the cause as well. So I hope everyone can even dip in, even if it's $1. As all of our indie creators say, $1 goes a long way. And same with the Daintree Forest. So if you can support it, that would be great. And thanks, Nate, for all of your hard work on this as well.
Yeah,
Cheers,
I'm
guys.
exhausted.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Matt. See you.
Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.